tempted to preach on that line from the first lesson, a multitude of camels shall cover you, which I've never could figure out whether that was a good thing or a bad thing, but instead I'll preach on the gospel. So a few days ago we had New Year's Day, and we all know that that's a time of resolutions. Some people resolve to lose weight, others to exercise more, others to work harder at their studies or on their career. Still others resolve that they're going to work a little less and spend more time with the family. And so the question I want to ask you is, what are you seeking? Not only, though, what is your resolve for the coming year, but what are you seeking to be in the center of your life? Now, this is an appropriate question considering the two groups of seekers we meet in today's gospel, the wise men and Herod. Now, let's talk a little bit about the wise men, okay? Who were the wise men? Well, I hate to start off on a bit of a sour note because I do love our first hymn, but they were certainly not kings. That is something that came into the church decades or centuries later. People just assumed they were kings, but they weren't kings. And, it was we three kings. Also, we have no idea how many there were. We get the number 3. If you look at the gospel, there's no number 3 in there. We get it from the gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. From time to time, we've said there were 2. We've said there were 12 or more. But in our day, we say 3 wise men. So if they weren't kings, though, who were they? Well, they were almost certainly Zoroastrian priests. Now, this is not something you expected to hear today, so let me explain a little bit. The Zoroastrian religion was founded in Persia, modern-day Iran. Its main prophet was Zoroaster, or also called Zarathustra. You may be familiar with that name from the, probably not your next-door neighbor, but probably from the Nietzsche book, Thus Spake Zarathustra. And if you've ever been to a Carolina game, which they also have a football team, the opening tune is 2001, but the real name of that is Thus Spake Zarathustra, that tune. But all that aside, why do we think they were Zoroastrian priests? Because in the gospel, in the Greek, they're called magoi. We call them magi. Now, the magi was the name given to the priestly class in Zoroastrianism. Zoroastrianism was probably the first monotheistic faith in the world. We also think they were Zoroastrian priests because they were from the East. And one of the things Zoroastrian priests did was to scan the heavens to look at the stars, the planets, and for other celestial phenomena to see if there were any signs God was giving them. So being the people looking at the heavens, it's quite possible that they saw the star that would lead them to Bethlehem. Another reason we think they're Zoroastrian priests is because Zoroastrianism, also called Zarathustrianism, if you're going to a cocktail party anytime soon and want to impress anybody, and you can say that after a cocktail, their religion, they have several sort of boiled down phrases. One is good works, good thoughts, good deeds. The other is there is only one path, and that path is truth. And so it makes sense that these priests who would scan the heavens were looking for someone, even though they were Jewish, to be born King of the Jews, because they were looking for truth and right. For truth and right. So here we have these people who aren't Jewish looking for the king of the Jews because they wanted to find one who would lead them to the truth and the right and the good. Now let's take a look at the other person, Herod. What was Herod seeking? Well, it certainly wasn't the good and the right. Herod was a megalomaniac. His only concern, obviously, was for his own power. Because when the Magi came to him, he was very worried hearing that one was born king of the Jews. And so he went for his scribes and said, where should they look? And they said, Bethlehem. And so Herod tells the Magi, go and find the child, and then come back that I too may go and worship him. But he, of course, had no intention of doing that. We find after the verses we did in today's gospel what his intention was. And so the Magi go to Bethlehem. They find the child. They offer their gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh, which, if you were listening to that first hymn, all have meaning. They show what the Magi were seeking. Gold signifies kingship. Only kings had gold. Frankincense is incense burned before a god, or God, the Son of God. And myrrh is used to anoint the bodies of the dead, thus showing Jesus was King of Kings, he was Son of God, and the death he would die for all humankind. But they go and they give the gifts, and being warned in a dream, they go back to their country by another route. Well, Herod is irate. Herod tells his soldiers to go to Bethlehem and the surrounding villages and to kill every male child 2 years and under, the massacre of the innocents. Here we have a man who is seeking only his own power, only his own self-aggrandizement, only the perks of power. Two kinds of seekers. One seeking the truth and the right and the good, and the other his own power. But I want to do a little thought experiment with you, because it's to the point of this sermon. Do you think Herod started out as evil as he became? Have you ever wondered about that? I started thinking about that. And I wonder, I have no reason to think this. I'm doing a little Talmudic thinking here. I have no reason to think this, but what if he started out as a person who was idealistic? He wanted to do right for his people as king. But then one day someone came to him, and he had to judge a case, and there was a big bribe involved, and so he judged unjustly. That would make it easier to do the next time, wouldn't it? And so all of a sudden, we find over the years, Herod in this thought experiment spiraling downward to become the despot he became, the murderer and liar he became. It reminds me of a lady I worked with once on a church staff. She was a wonderful lady, and we all loved her. Just very kind, very, what's the word? Efficient! Very efficient. It just escaped me. She was very efficient. But it turned out, unbeknownst to us, one day, a few years after she started working at the church, that she was a little short on money. So she took some money meant for the church. Now, the next week, we found out, later through all this, she put it back. But then the next time she wound up a little short, she took some more. And this kept happening until she had taken so much and stopped putting it back that she was in over her head. And what happened is eventually a forensic audit found what she had done. And she was arrested and prosecuted. Now, she didn't start out this way, did she? Think about when we become what we don't want to become. Is it because we were seeking the wrong thing? So here's the question, brothers and sisters. Not only what are you seeking? Are you seeking the good and the right and the true in Jesus Christ? But are you nurturing it? Because seeking it is not enough. You've got to nurture it. It's like a New Year's resolution. You go to the gym on January 1st and it's packed. You go by the 15th and it's the same old people who are always there, right? You have to nurture what you decide. We had a wonderful class this morning on the prayer book in Sunday school. A wonderful resource. How do you nurture the decision to make Jesus the center of your life, to seek the truth and the right in Him? Well, you do it through prayer. You do it through study. You do it through regular acts of mercy and ministry. You do it through reading in the prayer book, in the Bible. You do it by surrounding yourselves with people of faith who can sustain you, who can be truth speakers to you, and also console you. So the question is, as we begin this new year, 2019, what are we seeking? And are we willing to nurture it? My prayer for each of us is that we will not only seek the good, the right, and true that we find uniquely in Jesus Christ, but that we will have the grace and the strength to nurture it in the many ways we can, so that God can bless us as fully as He wants to. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.